My guest today is Christopher Hurst. He's an artist and tattooist, a British bipolar ex-soldier now exploring polyamory, masculinity and mental health. Chris and I chat about a wide range of topics from our life's experiences, including the continuous battle of remembering to have fun in life, our differing opinions on Winston Churchill, why dance is an important part of finding joy, Chris and I's past experiences with binge drinking, why I believe I may be an introvert, the prevalence of social masks and constructed identities, Chris's time in the British Army, the education system and its impact on identity, the effect that being in the military has on your social status, what polyamory is, and why a polyamorous relationship might be right for you. During this conversation, you may hear a reference to Nadja. This is friend of the show, Nadja Lasbeck, who Chris and I are mutually acquainted with. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, listen to it after this one. It has been very popular with my audience. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Christopher Hurst.
Is the actual question here, are you capable of moderation?
If everything is my experience, then what is this? Really trying to look at like your objective truth.
When you always wear a mask, you forget what your face looks like.
You end up believing these things because it's too painful to imagine that that's not true.
And what is also incredibly difficult is to understand what sunglasses you're wearing.
I find some of it pretty fucking lame.
Okay, so I think you're talking out your ass.
Alcohol turns introverts into extroverts in a society in which introversion is not valued. Fucking brutal.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's fucking beautiful. I was actually speaking to Nadja as well last night.
What, about me?
Yeah, about you.
Cool. Did she have anything nice to say?
She had many nice things to say. Something she said was that we'd have to go in hard, which I love about Nadja. And so that's prompted me to ask you about how that dry spell's going.
Fucking brutal. I'm trying to think about if has that desert been quenched since my conversation with Nadja? I don't know if it has. No, so I think it's still pretty dry, bro. Have you heard the term monk mode?
I haven't, but I get you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like embracing a bit of the old monk mode at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But like in a quite it's quite nicely balanced at the moment. But it's interesting. My idea of balance gives me like slight anxiety, like, well, I'm not really trying as hard as I should be, or I'm not being as structured as I should be, because I'm actually having a little bit of a life at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you can always say that. And this is one I actually struggle with as well, is the balance. Wait, are we in? Are we on? Are we?
Yeah, we're rolling, man.
All right, fantastic.
Sorry,
okay,
from the start. Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, is that balance between structure and leisure. And there's that saying like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Like actually living your life, enjoying yourself. Downtime is hugely necessary. We're in this enormous hustle culture where it's get everything done, do it now, and it's like actually kind of want to sit on the couch or like look at a tree for a while or like play video games, and we're allowed that.
Yeah, man. The fun the fun element is something that I definitely struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's probably the reason why, like, I've not had much success with women. Like, I think that's probably it, because I'm just always kind of in like autism mode. Like, I'm always like podcast and work and training, and it can sort of, that's definitely like downstairs on my whiteboard. I mean, there's I've literally said downstairs on my whiteboard, like, who has a fucking whiteboard downstairs? I do. It's in my living room.
Hey, that's a great thing to have. Like, I when I'm set up in a space, like in my old apartment, I always had a whiteboard which is like, do this, draw this, here's the next thing you need to do. It's a really fantastic way of visually organizing your life.
Yeah,
But
I think
you go on,
it's
carry on.
nice that, like, when you get stuff in your head, to be able to just like jot it down.
Yeah, definitely.
So I literally have this fucking massive whiteboard in my living room next to my sofa.
Uh-huh.
It used to be like, I've refreshed it recently, but it used to have all sorts. I had like habit tracking sheets and stuff. Have you seen Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, like where he's lost his fucking mind. So anyhow, and so I've got my goals on there, which is like, I've got like a monetary goal, I've got like a training goal, I've got like a podcast goal, and then I've got joy, fun goal, and that's always the one that's like mañana, like
Just gets kicked down the road.
yeah, like we'll get to that at some point. But I have been, I'm kind of like, I've been thinking when I want to celebrate episode 50, and you can see what I'm doing here. This is still kind of work, but I was like, right, I might have a big party or a big event for like publishing episode 50, which will be like February next year. But yeah, like you say, you've totally got me like chatting here, by the way. This wasn't the plan. But
Fantastic.
yeah, that fun element is definitely something that is not easy to cultivate.
I totally agree.
How do you like? Have you got any? Talk to me about your experience of joy and fun, and how do you incorporate that in your life or not?
All right, Jason, I will. So I think I've always been someone who has struggled to have fun, who has seen other people having fun and been like, they seem to find this shit really easy, and struggling to relate to that, struggling to work out how the fuck people do it. I remember a few years ago, I was at a party, and my ex-partner, who is a very good party, a brilliant person, knows how to have fun, was just like, Chris, you realize you're allowed to have fun, right? And I was like, no, kind of didn't realize I'm allowed to have fun. And giving yourself permission to do that, giving yourself reasons and looking for it, and looking for like 5% bullshit, silliness, ridiculousness in your life. I think also as men, we're, especially like kind of like Englishmen, we're taught this like stoicism, we're taught this like locked down, closed off kind of version, unless you are drinking hard. And then that becomes a crutch to having fun. You have to drink to a certain level to let the inhibitions go, when really you can just be a silly little guy with your friends. You know, you can be a silly little guy with whoever's going on. You can just fuck around. You can be like, hello, Mr. Coffee Cup. How are you doing? Oh, I'm fine, thank you very much. You know, like,
Thank you for that,
man. Like, play is an integral, beautiful part of the human condition. And like, when you really get into playing with yourself as well, you know, it brings you back to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting then to notice when the snap is, when oh, I'm being seen. Oh, I've gone too far in the play. And then you go straight back into the box. Very interesting. It's very interesting. And it's still something I struggle with quite a lot. But also I think finding good people who also fuck around, good people who also enjoy the levity, enjoy the lightness of life. Because yeah, man, shit's serious as fuck. Like, the world is on fire. There are so many issues, and yeah, you can look at them until you're blue at the face. You can continuously drive towards the next goal, but fuck, man, if you're not having a good time, like, I don't know, what's the point?
Yes. Like I say yes, then I'm like, fucking relax, Jason. We're having fun.
We're having fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
We're enjoying ourselves.
My mum got married at the weekend.
Uh-huh.
Congratulations to them. And
Yeah, congratulations, mum.
thank you.
Mrs. Out of context.
Mrs. Gregg now.
Oh.
And I don't drink, but one of the things I always find that will bring me that joy is actually the dance floor.
Yeah, mate. Yes.
Is and it gets like I still like have like a little bit of dread the idea of being on a dance floor sober.
Mm-hmm.
But it totally I just went with it this weekend, and it was beautiful. And I'd actually like I'd been a little bit tired in the middle of the day, and they're just like I just kind of I don't know. I just started dancing. Like there was no like, oh, I'm thinking about going and dancing, because sometimes it can feel a bit like that. Fucking hell,
Yeah.
I should dance. I just kind
Now
of
for the dance floor.
Yeah, like I just found myself like there, and I was kind of just like stood about, and then next minute I was just like going for it, and I remember just being like, this is so beautiful. Like I could feel like, and maybe you'll relate to this because we'll talk about jiu-jitsu, but like it wasn't like I was like aggressively kind of like, yeah, fucking dance. It was like all my limbs, like I could feel them relaxing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and just moving with the music, and just kind of like letting the music take me, and just totally letting go of my ego, not giving a shit about how I look. Don't get me wrong, like it comes in sometimes where you kind of like, oh yeah, what are you doing now? Like, what's that movie doing? You fucking weirdo. But like, just rolling with it, and just kind of like I can't move for Oasis fucking puns at the moment. But yeah, it's there's something in that simplicity and of like movement through dance. And
absolutely, man. Dance is super powerful. Dance is super powerful, and it's another thing like a lot of our society's kind of lost a little bit. Like, so obviously I'm living out here in Berlin, and music is massive here. Unfortunately, a lot of it's techno, and techno's shit. Don't come at me, listeners. But dance is a really powerful space, not only for connecting with others, but also for like connecting with yourself. So like you do all this physical training, like, and you're pushing yourself and you're driving yourself. But just getting on a fucking good dance floor with music that just does it for you, beautiful, man. Like I think that could be a really good space for you to cultivate in your life. Like, have you ever done ecstatic dance?
No. What's that?
So ecstatic dance is essentially sober dancing.
I've done ecstasy and danced.
Solid combo. Going together like cocaine and waffles.
Yeah, don't do drugs, folks. Kids, if there's any kids.
Do drugs intelligently. Do drugs well. Don't do drugs badly.
Be an intentional drug user.
Yeah, intentional, informed, things like that.
Do the drugs, don't let the drugs do you. Fuck yeah, I've just nailed that.
That is a good one, actually.
That's not easy though if you're that way out. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, ecstatic dance is dancing with hippies, and they take you through like the 5 rhythms, like, and it goes up and comes down, but it's just a sober, intentional space for you to just fucking dance it out. And that can be really good. I prefer drum and bass. I really feel like a good, proper, hard drum bass set with like a good system. Like me and my partner just get fucked down to that shit. That's actually how we met, which was really beautiful.
So are these like organized things, or you can just do it anywhere? What's the like?
Yeah, pretty much, man. If you Google ecstatic dance and your area, you will find something.
So it's an organization, or is it like a?
It's no.
Is it a brand or a thing.
No, it's just a
It's a
thing.
thing.
It's
Okay.
just like Googling yoga or jujitsu.
Okay.
You
Right.
know, it's like or CrossFit. It's just a
Yeah.
thing you find to do.
Although CrossFit is a brand. But
Is it?
yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of yeah, like if you're not an official CrossFit gym, you can't actually use the term CrossFit. Same with High Rocks. It's all for them to make money. But what happens is usually they'll start off, they'll get CrossFit affiliated or High Rocks affiliated. They'll
Mhm.
get known for it in the area, and then they'll drop it so they don't have to pay, and then they'll
Mhm.
just say, "Oh, we're a gym," and then everyone
Yeah,
knows them
yeah,
as a CrossFit gym.
yeah. We're gonna keep doing the same thing just without having to pay these guys.
Yeah, CrossFit style, or whatever. Um, yeah, I've seen one called Sober Morning Raves,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen a few of those.
which I'm a little bit kind of like hesitant around the sober community because, like, I find some of it pretty fucking lame. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, fair.
um, which like no, like it sounds a bit, but I don't know, just some of it is a bit cringe, and I feel like sometimes. Like it's cool talking about sobriety or whatever, but I feel like the more I talk about sobriety, like the more control the drink has over me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than
So
just being like,
you
yeah,
go from being a smoker to being someone who does not smoke.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's not like if that's the way that you're getting through this, you know, if you're like fully AA and you're like the sober guy and stuff, which I kind of like lent into for a bit, and I still probably leverage somewhat.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like yeah, then that's awesome. But for me, I kind of like I have to be careful not to give that too much energy.
Hmm. Yeah,
I say be careful. I feel like it's a good strategy for me to kind of just be a bit more kind of
fair. Then do what works for you. So
yeah.
you said you don't drink. So were you an alcoholic?
I think by AA's standards, I would be, but many people would be based on their standards.
Oh, geez, fuck Christ. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because they have like a thing where it's like if you answer yes to any of these, then you may be an alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
But I think I answered. I found my little pamphlet the other day for the one time I went, and I think I answered like 12 out of 15 or sort of like, which was quite a lot.
Uh-huh.
Interesting how though I wouldn't consider myself as like a full blown alcoholic, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
think
you never lost a house to it.
no, like I think I was always I don't know, like don't get me wrong, there were like occasions where like morning drinking became a thing,
Uh-huh.
which is like that's the biggest fucking red
Yeah,
flag.
when you're waking up and going, hmm. So what was it that precipitate? What was it that caused you to stop drinking?
Oh,
Decide to stop drinking.
to decide to stop. I've got like two answers for you. So there's just like a culmination of things whereby it's kind of like always been in the back of my mind.
Uh-huh.
Maybe for the last like I don't know, let's say like 7 to 10 years of drinking, kind of just in the, just like imagine what my life would be like if I didn't do this.
Yeah.
That was kind of always just kind of percolating in the back of the system there.
Uh-huh.
I would always do. There'd always be one event, like one big event a year, where I'd fuck up, like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just like blackout drunk, no idea what's happened.
Yeah.
Messages on my phone, just like, "What the fuck, man? What was last night all about?" Or and just no idea what's happened.
I remember like the absolute like soul consuming dread
Mm.
of not knowing what you did that night, of having that feeling of going like, oh God. And yeah, it's an awful, it's agonizing, it's a terrible feeling.
It's the
Um,
worst, man.
yeah, yeah. Um, I used to be really pretty bad for the drinking. And now I'm okay. I dealt with a lot of my shit because I had shit to deal with. And still do, of course.
You mentioned that you used to be a big drinker, and now you're pretty good.
Hmm.
Do you think a lot of that is like your environment changing? If you because you live in Berlin now.
No.
Okay.
Because fuck me, man. Like, uh, Berlin has a well-founded, solid reputation as a party city. It doesn't sleep. If you want to be in the club all day, every day, you can make that happen. You can be
Mm,
at afters. You can be fucked 24/7. It is a city
mm,
that 100% allows that. And it'll destroy you.
yeah.
Uh, no, my drinking, um, was very bad when I was in the army. It was quite bad when I was traveling, primarily when I was in the army. But I think it's because I had no tools. I had no capacity
Mm,
for self-soothing. I was just cripplingly insecure, and just loaded with self-hatred. And then you've got to drown it. That's how we're taught to
hmm.
deal with emotion, or not even consciously taught how to deal with emotion.
Yeah.
We are taught that this is what you do. You want to have fun, you drink. Fantastic. So if you want to have the most fun, you drink the most. Um, and I was always the one who was like, "Hey boys, we're doing fucking shots," and like all the guys would be like, "Nah, come on, man, it's a quiet one." I'd turn up to the table with like a fucking plate of shots. Like, come on, I've got them now. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Um, Fucking blacking out, cheating on people, like being a fucking dickhead. Um, but really think that stopped. Um, Kind of stopped when I left the army and went to Thailand and met hippies for the first time. Uh, and my partner at the time was just like, you know what? I don't drink. I'd rather if you didn't. And I was like, okay, I'll try not drinking. And then, as soon as that relationship was over, like it came back, but not as bad. But I'd already started the process of like self-reflection, of understanding like what's driving my behaviors, of like, okay, cool, why the fuck do I need to get blackout drunk?
Mm.
And yeah, I think until you have that kind of revelation of like, what the fuck is going on with me? That's always the start of it.
Yeah, I think after I asked you that question, I'm going, yeah, you're just looking for an excuse to move to Berlin, Jason.
You can move to
Yeah.
Berlin, mate. Fucking get over here. We'd love to have you. Take you out
Yeah,
dancing.
I'm just thinking I was like, but I'm like, oh, am I looking for a route back into drinking by saying, oh yeah, if you change your circumstances? Because I do think there's so many different like strategies you can sort of deploy in that sort of thing. Obviously,
Hmm.
therapy is probably the longest lever that you can pull.
Hmm.
Um, like I haven't drank since I've done therapy, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
so part of me is like, well, maybe, yeah, maybe I'll be okay now because I'm like, um, but yeah, not that I want to drink. Like I'm nowhere near that at the moment. I'm totally fine. But I suppose it drops into my mind now and again. You go, will there ever be a thing or whatever? And if you move to another place, do you think that would still be an issue? Because there's like so many times where you would go to a different environment and you would just not be this. You would not act out in the same ways.
Hmm.
But no, I'm in no hurry to start back drinking. So
I mean, is the actual question here, are you capable of moderation?
uh, no.
All right, fucking good. Good, good, solid no. All right, then don't fucking do it. Good
Yeah,
shit, man. Like, that's That is a solid fucking decision.
I think that was look, it's hard because you don't want to give yourself limiting beliefs, but I think in
Hmm.
general, I do find it hard to moderate most things. But I'm definitely getting better. So I think that's why I think, when it comes to even like my training and stuff, I'm much more moderate than I was. And we mentioned this right at the start of the podcast, whereby, but then in my head, I'm thinking I'm not going hard enough.
Yeah,
But I am
yeah.
starting to be able to be better at that moderation.
Hmm.
Um, I think part of me thinks if I was gonna, or like I've toyed with the idea of maybe just getting drunk at like a festival.
Hmm.
Or like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go at this festival. I'm gonna get fucked up. Um, but it's at a festival. It's a one-time thing. It's within like this microcosm.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we'll see. Watch this space. I don't like I say, it's definitely not on the horizon anytime soon. And I'm like totally happy with where I am in terms of my drinking stuff at the moment.
So this is something that's occurred to me. Um, the link between okay, so I went through a period of time where I was just shagging and shagging and shagging. Um, and what I was actually, and I was talking to my friend about this the other day, uh, was an act of kind of self-care because if I had someone over, I'd cook dinner for them and then we'd eat well.
Mm.
And I'd tidy my room and I'd make sure I wasn't living in a fucking shithole so I could present some kind of like, cool, I'm a good person or I'm, whatever. Um, and what I was really looking for out of that, like, probably wasn't the sex. I mean, don't get me wrong, like gay sex, but was intimacy, was
Mm.
being and feeling seen and held. Um, and I think as well, like drinking was a response to that as well. Was a answer to wanting to feel connected.
Yes,
Um,
100%. I think you just, and especially like coming from our culture, because you're from Manchester, right? Yeah, so I'm Cumbria, so it's like
mhm,
North England, Northwesters, aren't we? And yeah, like you literally connect drinking with, we said before, fun,
mhm,
um, connection.
mhm.
Um, what was the other thing? I'm sure there was a third one, but yeah, like so. Oh, and like stress relieving. So no
Mhm.
wonder we end up with these fucked up personalities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, and yeah, I think for me, like drinking was always like possibility.
What do you mean by that?
Like, like what if I have a drink? What might happen? Like,
Yeah, you can go on a little
because
adventure.
I put on my fucking cape. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, so like so many of the, and certainly like again, like we're talking about like sex and stuff before, and like I used to fuck around loads when I was drinking
Hmm.
because like put like 2 3 drinks down me and I'm like,
The most charming man alive, mate.
exactly, you
Hmm.
just take that like 10% of like fucking like awkwardness off, and
Yeah.
then you're just left with this kind of like exactly what you want to say. um but of course 4 or 5 drinks and
You kind of go, yeah.
I'm like trying to use fucking Google Keep to write the name in my phone so I don't forget, and then
Hmm.
going and like, so yeah, like then you go the other way, don't you? But yeah, so I think you just end up connecting those things, and
Yeah, it's when it's the tool that you have been issued with as a child. Because like when I go back to England pretty much anytime you want to do anything, it's like, all right, man, yeah, we're going out for a drink. It's
Yeah.
That's it. It's like they're kind of like, yeah, sweet, man, what are we doing? Oh, let's go get a bit. Every single time, like you try and meet someone somewhere that isn't a pub, or like even in the morning, like, yeah, it's coffee. But so much of the social interactions is based around the social lubricant of alcohol. And so, when your parents have done that, their parents have done that, and that is the environment that you grow up in, it enables a dependency, just an absolute dependency. And so rather than developing other tools, like emotional intelligence, like communication, like fucking knowing that you need to go out for a dance,
Yeah.
you are stuck with that one thing. And this is something I find quite often is, so I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm my name's Christopher. I'm a blue belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which means I'm not nearly as good as I think I am. And if I've not been training for like a week, I get twitchy. I'm just like, I need to go choke somebody. And I imagine growing up for my entire life and not knowing that I just needed to go and get choked and choke a dude and fucking like roll around on the floor with my sweaty mates, or not knowing that I need to go out for a fucking dance, or not knowing that like actually I'm not connected to my body at all. And you need to stretch, you need to fucking do all these things because we aren't brought up with those things. And I relate this as well. I think I have a fair amount of neurodivergent traits. My partner's always like making autistic jokes at me because I do love my structures and I love my fucking timings and like things in places. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu also, autistic and ADHD massively overrepresented. But I'll go back to my
I
mum's
had this
place.
conversation with Nadja actually.
Did you?
Yeah,
Of course.
literally that conversation. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I go to some places and the lighting's off. And like I went through Stansted Airport the other day and it was fucking agonizing. It was just like a mall packed with people, the lights fucking hideous, roasting, nowhere to sit. And I was like, okay, cool, I have tools for this. I put my fucking earplugs in, shades on, I found the quietest space, and I was like, this sucks, but I can deal with it. And the thing that's come up for me is like, am I actually so much more sensitive now, or have I always been this sensitive? And I just didn't realize, so I was just pissed off all the fucking time. And if you're fucking pissed off all the time, you need to self-soothe, and you self-soothe with alcohol.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it is a bit of a chicken egg scenario sometimes, isn't it? When you're doing, you're like, I feel like I've always been this way, and then you kind of like you're trying to look back, and that's the thing about, in general, like how we, even through like things like trauma, like we kind of map it back to like I've always been this way, even if it's not been the case. Which I'd heard someone talking about this, Dr. Paul Conti, and he was saying like, so if you got into a car accident, God willing doesn't happen, but if you got into a car accident and you experience some trauma from it, what tends to happen is, and it's like some sort of like adaptive response whereby you go, yeah, I've always been afraid of being in a car or whatever, even if you didn't have that before, if that makes sense. So sometimes like the experience of being human is sometimes a bit of a head fuck, like in terms of like, have I always been like this? Do you know what I mean? Like, and there's this whole like, is everything a simulation? Like, if everything is my experience, then like, what is this? And really trying to look at like your objective truth takes
objective truth. Fucking hell.
Takes a lot, doesn't it?
I mean, this is it. There both is, and I fucking love that this is where it's gone. I'm fucking sad with this joke. There is kind of no real objective truth, because you can have like what you believe in this instance, but at the same time, what you're saying is like let's use the car accident analogy. Like this person has had a car accident, and then they go, yeah, man, I've just always been scared of cars. And because they're scared of cars in the now, they can look back and their memories are going to be flavored by being scared of cars. Whereas at the time, they wouldn't. And this is, we were talking with Nadia about this last night, and trauma in your worldview doesn't even have to be trauma. Like, it can be positive. It can be just the way you've been programmed is the way you look at the world. It's the pair of sunglasses that you have on anytime you look at anything. And so what is really interesting and what is also incredibly difficult is to understand what sunglasses you're wearing.
Mm.
You know? And so we go out to something and it's like, oh, cars. Therefore, you're super aware of the cars in the situation. You're super aware of like the roads in the situation. Whereas other people were like, oh, there was a car nearby? I had no idea.
What sunglasses are you wearing? I'm just writing this down. That's a really good prompt, isn't it? Yeah. What
the lens through
filter?
which you
Yeah.
view reality.
What filter are you? A few things I want to talk about that popped into my head. Let's rewind a little bit, and I will indulge my curiosity stroke insight.
Indulge that curiosity, mate. You deserve to. Go for it.
Do you know much about introversion and extroversion?
Only from a first-hand perspective.
Would you class yourself as an introvert or an extrovert?
I feel like I go through phases. I feel like I definitely do have times where I'm like, everyone leave me the fuck alone. I need to sit in my room, smoke weed, and draw for like a week. Other times I can be the life and soul of the party. I think I'm probably more introverted these days.
Can you be the life and soul of the party sober?
Sometimes. Depending on the party, depending on the people.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel like it's one of those things where like it's like the Pandora's box thing. So you kind of like you might not be grateful for like this kind of insight. But I've been reading a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, and she because one of my mates sent me and he was like, you might be an introvert. Not an introvert. So and I started and I thought, well, I'll listen to it. I'll see if there's any, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. And then the more I get into it, like I start to go like, oh, fucking hell. Like, and there is literally like a scientific, like classification for introversion and extroversion. It's like, it's, how the brain responds, whatever. I'm butchering it right now in terms of like how they define that. But I had this like realization and it kind of came to a head like this: weddings are so like salient for me. They seem to have like so many lessons in them. But yeah, if you want to know,
define what you mean by salient.
Salient is like just like important, prominent. Kind of just like they just stick out as like, yeah, it's maybe not even the correct use of the term. Let me know in the comments. But like, it's almost like a hard training session. So if you want to find out about yourself, go to a wedding and not drink all day.
Yeah. I feel I feel the same about like festivals.
Yeah.
Like you come under so many different conditions, you come under so many different challenges, and you have to like creatively problem solve your way through them, or you are put in so many different situations where you are asked who the fuck you are and how the fuck you respond to this. Yeah.
100%. And it's like, so, there's lots of surface level conversation with weddings, isn't there? And
So
especially
much.
like, because I was kind of part of the wedding party as like a groomsman person. So
Hmm.
you're a little bit more in the limelight than
Hmm.
an average guest. So you're kind of like a representative of the wedding.
Yeah.
So the way you greet people is kind of like, has this like slightly different flavor to it. Um, and I think it just exhausts me.
Hmm.
Like, because what I want to do, and this is where I heard this in this book, is like, again, like I've always thought of myself as an extrovert, but like I want to get someone and like talk to them in the corner about fucking psychedelics or something, and that's kind of where I get really burnt out with all the surface level stuff. Um,
Feel exactly the same.
yeah, and I think there are more extroverts than we realize,
Hmm.
introverts than we realize, and especially
Everyone's
in
just masking.
yeah, masking, and this comes back to alcohol.
Hmm.
Like, so actually, I put a pin in alcohol. So let's go back to, it's like when I was a kid, I was a very shy little boy. My
Hmm.
sister was very loud, extroverted. Look at me, Jason, hold the camera straight. While she was like, literally there is footage of me behind a camera and she performing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then like my experience was like, like popular lads and like lads that used to fuck about would get with the girls. Like we're talking like primary school. And
Hmm.
when you kind of like look from afar, kind of like, how is it these guys get to talk to them girls and stuff? I remember very intentionally, like I had a summer before I went to secondary school into year 7,
Hmm.
and I was like, right, I'm going to change.
Hmm.
And I started that first September back. I started fucking around. I started being cheeky. I started making jokes. I started talking to girls and stuff. And I've always thought of that as like, oh, I just come out my shell.
Hmm.
And then the more that I'm like looking into this introversion extroversion thing, I'm like, was it that I saw the love and attention adoration that people got who are extroverted and went, because no one values the shy kid in the corner. No
So
one
what you're
gives.
saying is you constructed a persona. You constructed a persona in order to receive the kind of like social and intimate appreciation that you saw other people getting and you wanted.
I think so.
Uh-huh.
I
I
think
feel you.
so. Yeah, and yeah, and it's just like, but like when you start to look at masks, like it's kind of like, what the fuck? Like, really? Have I
Hmm.
been wearing a mask? Like, who is Jason? And like, and then okay, so now let's bring in alcohol. What does alcohol do? Alcohol turns introverts into extroverts in a society in which introversion is not valued.
Hmm. So there's a few points here. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's fucking beautiful. I think we may just both have a touch of the tism. I think we're I feel like I'm listening to it and I'm kind of like, wow, everyone's
Touch of
just
the
really fucking
tism.
stepping up here. Fuck.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, I I feel that, and I also feel that quite strongly is that for a lot of my life, um, I felt like I've been playing a role. I feel like I've kind of had this characterization, and it, it's when you always wear a mask, you forget what your face looks like. And then it's the process of looking at you, really looking at yourself, really looking at yourself, really, really fucking looking at yourself and realizing what developed as a response to something, what developed as a need, what developed as like, what was part of this persona you constructed. Um, and you also brought up that like introverts aren't appreciated in our society. And I think it's very easy to feel that way, especially when you're seeing extroverts get all the conversation, get all the opportunities, all that kind of shit happen. But at the same time, there are just as many introverts who want those fucking corner conversations about your fucking special interest at the moment.
Mm.
We can also be a little harder to find because we're also masking as extroverts, being like, oh yeah, sweet, how was your day? Blah, 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 blah. Have some small talks, and like trying to fit in with the louder, more dominant culture rather than being like, hey man, so mycelium, want to go hard on this
Yeah.
one? There's a table over there with none of these loud dickheads, and we can just really, really get into like the mechanics of arm bars. Um,
Although I do think that was like like you can sort of like just like we sort of attract each other where you kind of like look at that guy over there with like look at that girl over there with no fucking forehead expression.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I seem to always end up with the neurodivergence, but yeah. And by the way, introverts are valued in society, as in great thinkers, authors, fill in the
Mhm.
blank. But I think as like a meta kind of, or like a certainly like at school.
Mhm. Yeah, school's
At
a big one.
school, yeah, like you're going to get more attention if you're louder, or and
Hmm.
actually I noticed this in myself recently, where I went to like a seminar at the gym, and I ask a lot of questions.
Hmm.
And I don't believe that's masking. Like that's my genuine curiosity. Maybe it's like I don't know. Maybe there's something wrapped in there, like this teacher's pet kind of need for connection going on. There's probably
Hmm.
some of that going on. Um, but then I noticed, and someone I said afterwards had mentioned, this person uh, is autistic, and they said, I found it hard to focus all the time because you were the one asking the questions.
Hmm.
And I was like, fuck. And like, there's a great example of it. Like the person who shouts the loudest, the person who asks the more, like they get a more tailored experience
Yeah.
because they're able to shove everyone else out the way. Me, like, do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, and then it kind of like, yeah, it kind of gave a different flavor to that idea of, you're asking the stupid questions that other people are thinking,
Yeah.
which but then he was like, oh fucking hell, yeah, but I hope I'm not like ruining other people's experience because I'm like asking all these questions.
Well, yeah, but I suppose I think anytime you think of a question, there's at least like five other people in the class who have thought the same question but didn't have the balls to ask it.
Mm, yeah, I'll stick with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. And I
Right,
think go on, mate. What were you gonna say? I was gonna take us to like school and kids and like behaviors in that
yeah, let's go.
because
Let's go.
like the traditional school system that we're under right now was developed during the Industrial Revolution to make people good workers. There's a quote by fucking Rockefeller, which was like, I don't need thinkers, I need workers. Paraphrasing, of course, but something equally fucking heinous. Um, and I think especially for motherfucker, like you can't put fucking kids in a room for like 8 fucking hours and expect them not to go batshit insane and start beating the shit out of each other and screaming and stuff.
Mm.
It's not how we're supposed to fucking do. Like, and again, like I think about, I made the Stansted analogy about all of these factors. I remember the fluorescent lighting. I remember the constant shouting, the constant noise, things like that. And then you're expected to learn under these conditions with so much shit going on. Um, and again, we talk about the loudest kids, and kind of either being in trouble or needing to get that attention. And, if you're not getting attention for being good, then you will get attention for being bad. When we are in that like melting pot of social interaction, like I would say every day at high school was like a wedding. You know, because you got form in the morning, you got groups there, you got the fucking playground outside. Like, who are you with? What's going on? And then you're in English class and you've got to learn. And then there's this one dickhead next to you who never shuts up or like is always like prodding you or something like that. So you're in this rock polisher where you're really forced to develop a persona. You're very forced to develop who the fuck you are and how you want to act. So many of those things are responses to everyone else who is also in this incredibly high intensity situation. I think that also gives us some quite maladaptive responses, which we then carry around for years and years until they bump off something. And that's something that comes up for me quite often is, here's an analogy for this one. So a few years ago, one of my partners was like, "Hey, Chris, do you want some peanut M&Ms?" And I was like, "No, I fucking hate peanut M&Ms." And she was like, "When was the last time you had one?" And I was like, I was 5 or some shit. I was a kid and someone gave me a peanut M&M and I hated it. And she was like, "Why don't you try one now?" And I was like, "I don't like it. But fine, I'll fucking try it." And I tried the peanut M&M and I was like, "Brilliant. Love it. Fantastic." Because I'd taken on this idea of myself as someone who hates peanut M&Ms, that's 20 years or something, I've not eaten one. And so again, like we take on these bits and until, again, we bring it back to drinking. We're like, "Oh yeah, no, sweet. I just drank." And until that drinking starts bumping on other parts of your life, you don't look at it. You don't examine it. You don't get it. And we operate under these parameters. We have these sunglasses on, which show us how we want to move through the world.
Yeah, man. No, I when you're talking about being at school then as well, I was thinking about the first thing I thought about was dyslexia. So
Mm-hmm.
you what's your experience of dyslexia being like? Did they? You said they picked it up early, right?
Yeah, I picked up in primary, maybe even earlier than primary school, I think.
And is it what like flavor is it? Is there do you know like what kind of?
I remember the term developmental dyspraxia. Um, but I'll be honest, mate, I can't really remember what that means.
Yeah, sorry, you did say that early in the conversation. I don't know what dyspraxia is either. I know it's obviously part of that thing. Yeah, so I was 20, maybe
Mm-hmm,
19.
mm-hmm,
Had already basically failed my first year of uni.
mm-hmm,
And so mine's processing speeds.
mm-hmm.
So literally reading a book was just like, it was like I didn't read my first book until I was 21,
Wow.
and nobody noticed. Like
Oh, bud. Oh, mate.
if ever's there's a person who knows how to mask,
Mm-hmm,
is someone who managed to get away with it all that time.
mm-hmm,
Literally, I tell this story all the time, but like a bookshelf full of fucking Goosebumps books.
mm-hmm.
No idea what happened. I just blag it. I just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yes. What's it?
Scary monster. Yeah,
Yeah, oh
kids.
yeah. I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or like English homework. Yeah, and I just blag it, and I don't know how I managed to get through. Um,
Well, clearly your blagging skills like grew
yeah,
in response to your lack of reading skills.
yeah, and then because I didn't like reach a rock bottom at school because I did quite all right, like
Mm-hmm,
C's and B's and stuff like that.
mm-hmm,
Like nothing got picked up.
mm-hmm,
So that was reinforced that my blagging was okay.
mm-hmm,
And then, but yeah, like even with the podcast, I had my first ever guest, Dr. Joey Webber. Um, Remember, I did the first one. I was like, oh yeah, that went quite well. I was like, yeah, like I feel like I sounded quite clever, so, you know, like I came up with a few
Hmm.
things, and then in the meantime, I did some work on myself or whatever, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Fucking hell! I have no idea what he's talking about," and I
Uh-huh.
didn't even admit it. Like I didn't even
Hmm.
ask him, "What's that
Hmm.
mean? Say that again.
Hmm.
Can you explain that to me again?" I've not
Yeah.
got it. Like, and it's like this reinforced masking
Hmm.
of thinking that and of pretending that you understand stuff that I've developed for years.
Hmm.
So I had him on the for the second time, and it was like a totally different experience where I go, and I actually said at the start of it, I was like, I think I didn't understand last time, so I'm going to be totally authentic, and if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask you to explain it again.
Good shit, man. Good shit.
Um, so so yeah, so that's been interesting, but let's talk about Chris a little bit more
Hi, I'm
because
Chris. Nice to meet you. How's
yeah,
it going?
you in the army for what, 6 years?
Hmm.
What was that like?
Sucked. I was the worst soldier. I was the worst soldier. I went in when I was 18 because I had fucked college. Also because of drinking and kind of shit going on at home. Um, I had no qualifications. I had no money. I was working at fucking Mackey's, and like no shade, fucking Mackey's is a great place to work. You work in there with like six other of your mates. Um, but I come from a lot of my family have been in the forces, and so as your stereotypical full of fucking piss and vinegar, angry teenager with something to prove, um, the army does seem like the perfect place to be. You can go, you can put your energy into something which at the time I believe was noble and self-sacrificial and masculine and powerful and stuff like that. Um, and I discovered pretty rapidly that it was not a good place for me. However, um, you go through basic and then it's like, the next term's going to be better. And then the next bit's going to be better. And then the next bit's going to be better. And by the time you get to there, you're like a year in already. And it's, we just get to like the real army and then it'll be better. And I got there and I was like, ugh.
Mm,
But you know the sunk cost fallacy?
yes.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't, the sunk cost fallacy is essentially the idea that if you bet 20 euros, you need to bet another 20 euros to get the first 20 euros back. So I'd been in the army for a while, a good few years, and I was like, I can't be in the army for this amount of time and not go to war and not go to Afghanistan. Um, so I was like, cool, I'll stick it out until I go to Afghanistan. And I went to Afghanistan, and it was nothing special, but I could say that I'd done it.
Mm,
And then we came back and we started doing the exact same shit, and that's when it really hit me. So I didn't see anything particularly heinous out there, anything grim. Like I haven't got any war stories that are worth sharing. But what really affected me was spending 6 years around that level of drinking, spending 6 years around that level of just toxic masculinity and constantly just being at each other. Like it was not um, a good place for me because I couldn't integrate. I was
mm,
constantly like, why the fuck are we doing this? This guy's a fucking idiot. Everyone here is a fucking moron. Um, yeah, and that was pretty brutal. That was pretty brutal. It made me very, very depressed for a long time. Um, until I was like, cool, I am either going to leave the army or I'm going to fucking kill myself. And I chose the first one.
good.
Yeah. And that precipitated, we say talking earlier about that move towards and move away from something.
Mhm.
When I left the army, my best mate Scott says he sees it as a little 4-panel comic. And the first one is me stepping out there and being, where is the least army place I can be right now? And the uniform rips off, and then like someone puts a fucking Hawaiian shirt on me and some flowers and a tap of acid on my tongue. And I'm just there at like a Thai Japanese hippie music festival in northern Thailand, just like, whoa, shit and shit. Um, yeah, and that was really that's exactly what I did. I went to Thailand. I ended up at a Thai Japanese hippie music festival. I took acid for the first time. I met hippies, and that was really felt to me like the first time I'd experienced people just being sound, just being kind for kindness' sake. And it was a really small festival, so by the end of that week, I knew everyone. Um, and that was a real turning point in my life. Um, yeah, so I ended up living in Thailand for a while, traveling around. Ended up living in Cambodia for a couple of years, which is where I learned how to tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Um,
Whereabouts in Cambodia?
Siem Reap,
Mm.
which is the city that's kind of built off Angkor Wat,
Yeah.
which is one of the seven ancient wonders. Is it seven? Something like that. Amazing place, very interesting, very touristy city, because of course, but a beautiful place to live for a while anyway.
Yeah, I did a bit of traveling, so familiar with Siem Reap. Bit of a bit of a party, little
Oh yeah,
party sort
yeah,
of vibe as well. Well,
Club
most
Street.
places, yeah, yeah. Okay, now I've got like pictures like stood buying a fucking quadruple mojito off like a 12-year-old or something. Like
Sounds
they're
about
just
right, mate. Yeah.
they were just kids running the store, running like selling booze. Is mental.
hmm
Yeah, a very poor country. Um,
It's what happens after a genocide.
yeah, it's fucked up. I wanted so just hovering over the army stuff.
hmm
Number one, do you have a brother?
Do I?
Yeah. Do you have any
No.
siblings?
I have a little sister. She turns 18 next month, actually.
Mm. And so I was just thinking about like relationship with like men and banter and kind of like that
hmm
sort of
hmm
like you say the toxic masculinity thing or whatever. I do wonder sometimes like if we're more resilient to it if we've grown up with brothers,
Mm.
um because I think if you're more used to being around women, like my experience is like you take everything much more literal.
hmm
So that's like something I've had to like work on where I mean I'm still not very good at it where like like shit talking or whatever and I'm like fucking
hmm
hell like why'd you say that but like that's kind of our guys bond or whatever
hmm
um and then I was wondering about whether like it was a net negative or net positive you going in the army
hmm
because I think there's something to be said for like an initiation into like the masculine world.
hmm
And
hmm
like, I feel like saying that you're ex-army, ex-military, whatever, holds some stature.
It does.
Yeah.
Um, this is a very interesting one. You've hit on something quite cool here. So you just said an initiation into the masculine world, and what immediately came to me was which one?
Mm.
Like, there are so many like masculine spheres, and I also thought about like coming into jujitsu. Um, and jujitsu has really, I think, helped me heal my relationship with men.
Mm.
Um, and you're right, like saying your ex-army, it has energy to it, you know? It has a kind of like, oh yeah, Chris was a soldier. Because hey, most people have no fucking clue what being in the army is like. None whatsoever.
Mm.
No idea. And so all they see is like Black Hawk Down or fucking Saving Private Ryan.
Mm.
They don't know that most of being in the army is waiting and masturbating and like
Mm.
fucking chatting shit.
I think it's
Um,
just a real good proxy for courage.
mhm,
Like if you sign up for the army,
mhm,
that guy's pretty brave. Like that's straight away. That's a big tick.
mhm,
Like okay, you might say, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea or stupid or whatever, that's completely a different thing. But you can say like fair play, fucking
Hmm.
hell, like, and I think like in life, like we're always looking for like these indicators. We're constantly judging whether we aren't we.
Hmm.
And do you know much about Winston Churchill?
Um, I wouldn't say I know a lot. I know a decent amount of his quotes. I know that he was actually a pretty fucking heinous. I'm loving the word heinous today. Um, he was brutally anti-union. He really wanted to stamp down on a lot of the labor movement, and that as a kind of British hero, he only he got us through World War I, but he also caused the fucking starvation in India and all that kind of shit. So he's a well-rounded character. Not only is he so rotund, like he's an interesting and varied person. He's not this like raw kind of, but
Complex is a complex
yeah,
character.
yeah.
I think as well though, like, and I was a little bit kind of like, oh, like I went down that route when it was kind of like, oh yeah, he seemed like a bit of a dickhead or whatever. One must remember this was a fucking long time ago,
Absolutely.
and he was a war leader. So like,
Hmm.
and as well, like this is the thing with like with most great people,
Hmm.
great in whatever terminology when you make it,
Hmm.
they are complex characters. Like you don't um like you don't hear of like Marcus Aurelius being a great dad.
Yeah,
Do
fair
you know what
point.
I
You
mean?
don't.
Like a slightly different character, but um, like usually, like the thing that makes them great probably makes them fucking mental in another way.
Mm. What's his fucking name now? He's this ex-Marine Navy SEAL ultra marathon runner.
Goggins,
Goggins, fucking Goggins.
David Goggins.
Um, I was listening to his book, and he was just like, yeah, so then I run my first ultra marathon and I broke this record and da, 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 and then I broke up with my first wife. And then after that, I broke this world record and I did this and I did, and then I broke up with my second wife. And he just goes on. It's just like, David, lad, like maybe you're running away from something. Like, yeah, you've got a callous mind. You can do all these things. That's amazing. You're a powerful, like, vibrant soul with like just all this power and all this potential. But fuck me, dude, like look slightly left or right of the things, and it's like, okay, like there's other stuff here. There's
Oh yeah,
so
like
much.
he's got like huge issues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I think that sounded like his first book. I think I listened to the second one.
Can't hurt me is
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, was it? I've listened to one of them. I can't remember which one. I'm sure it was the second one for some reason.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's like you can deploy these things. It's a bit like monk mode, but
Mhm.
like I was like I would use Goggins actually as inspiration. Like this time last year when I'm like getting up at fucking 5 a.m, getting in the cold plunge, going out running,
Mhm.
whatever. It was like the Goggins mentality. But
Yeah.
like having that all the time,
Mhm.
like clearly that guy is running from
Mhm.
something, no pun intended, but he is running away.
Mhm.
Like there's no hiding that. Like
Yeah.
because he is codependent on exercise.
Yeah, yeah, essentially. I think
Basically,
this is, have you heard the term like, never meet your heroes?
I've heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is almost what we're describing. I think also it's super impressive, not super impressive, super useful to have these inspirational figures and who, you know, no one's fucking perfect. We're all
Mm.
fallible human beings. We're all like fucked creatures doing the best we fucking can, or fantastic creatures operating in non-fantastic conditions. And so you can take the the ferocity, the tenacity of David Goggins. You can take the clear-mindedness and throatness of Churchill, you can also take the softness and compassion and creativity of Maya Angelou and have those parts and appreciate those parts. You don't have to be like, cool, I want to be everything David Goggins is.
Yeah. 100%.
Bundy pig. Bundy
And,
pig.
and just going back to Churchill, by the way.
Mm.
So
Yeah, sorry, where were you going
the
with that? I feel
the
like I'm
reason
tangenting all over the place.
no, it's cool. I love a tangent. The reason I brought it up was so I've read like some of his biographies, like they're like fucking this big. So like
Mhm.
and what was really interesting is he was like from an early age, he like had this plan of like, right, I need to see some action, I need to get out, I need to win some medals, I need to get shot at basically, and then I'll have like the respect that I need to get myself into parliament. So
Mm.
he literally, but he was like this epitome of this kind of posh, brave British, because that's the thing with like posh British lads, fucking brave. Like, do you know what I mean? They're just like, oh, we're right out to the battlefield, and like that was quite amazing when they were just
Mhm.
like they're just so like gentlemanly about war and like that's just part of life um
Jason,
and
I
I
think you're
just
talking out your ass.
pardon,
I think you're talking out your ass.
go on.
All right, so there's a there's a book by Nietzsche, and I haven't read all of it. Don't get me wrong, but he describes in it uh the German idea of like the Übermensch, the man who goes to war and da 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 da, and he's talking about this, and he kind of goes, yeah, it's kind of bullshit. Like, have you seen fucking Blackadder?
um Occasionally, but I never really got
Okay,
into it.
so I'll make a Lord of the Rings reference because everyone knows Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah, I think what you're describing is these, upper class men going out, blah, 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 like the elves. They're like,
Mm.
yes, this is just what we do. We're doing the thing. When really everyone's a lot more like the fucking hobbits. And I understand what you're saying in yeah, there is that it is expected of sons of high class houses to go into the forces, especially in like heavy war times. Um, I think there is that kind of like toot toot pip pip mentality that goes along with that. I think it's primarily bullshit. I don't actually think that that is how it would be. I can understand that it's a narrative, it's a storyline, it's small talk. I don't
Mm.
think it's true.
I think so I'll just push back on that a little bit.
Please do.
Like I get what you're saying, but in terms of like like taking Churchill for example, like
Mhm,
he had this idea of like I need to go out, I need to see some action and stuff. But he did actually do it. Like
mhm.
whether that was like and this was like pre-social media, and like this is someone who's been brought up with the idea of empire and all the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we like again like they didn't
Now they're
have
in
like
Civilized the Savages.
yeah, well, yeah,
Uh-huh.
they didn't have the context that we have right now.
No.
And you've got to look at like the like upbringing and stuff. Like Churchill's dad was like a fucking asshole and stuff like that. But I'll bring this home eventually. I promise. But he went out and he like did loads of brave shit, got some medals or whatever, and he literally used it as a springboard to get himself into Parliament.
Yeah.
And it was just I just found it fascinating. I'm not saying it's like what's the word? I'm not saying it's virtuous, but I
Mhm.
think it's fascinating. Like
Yeah.
how he had this kind of like just approach of just like this is what I need to do, and actually like um he went to the Boer War as a journalist. And for one thing that like comes back is like he's an extremely brave character. and like they got attacked on a train, and he basically like led the like all the people who were in it, and he was kind of like fighting back and helping them. Loads of people died, and then he got captured, and he got captured in this prison camp, and ends up escaping, and has the audacity. He's there for like fucking like, I don't know, like 18 months or whatever or something, and then he plans his escape and then leaves like a note, like goading them as he's like got like 2 days to like walk in the desert or whatever. But there's something like that is just kind of
It's pretty
hard.
fucking cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
You don't hear of that. Like, it's like there's something in that, like, where he's just so like kind of deluded in his own self-importance that he has the audacity to like, oh, just break out the camp and like leave a note and stuff. And there is kind of like, there's some lesson in that, in that kind of, it's kind of hilarious that he's kind of just like poking fun at people. And it's almost like there's a lot of ego in it, but there's also like in a strange way, there's not. I don't know. I can't explain.
Kind of carried under the momentum of his own self-image, which I think is actually incredibly powerful. And I think we all kind of are carried under the momentum of our own self-image. If you have this self-image as someone who loses, someone who's weak, who's someone who can't do things, then yeah, that is the fucking case. However, if you have this idea of yourself as this unstoppable fucking badass, look at you, you're an unstoppable badass.
Yeah, like that positive self-delusion. He even said, I'll shut up about Churchill in a minute. He even said, like, one of his school friends said that at like 10 years old, he was like, basically saying to this kid, like, yeah, I've got it all planned out or whatever. There's going to be a big battle. I can see it in my head. London's going to be under attack, and I'm going to be at the center of it all, protecting everyone. Like, he like said this to his fucking mate, which is mental. But bringing it home, someone who's been in the army gains respect. And that was my original point for what we were talking about. And yeah, like him or loathe him, I do think he's an interesting character in history. Let's talk about polyamory. And just to clarify, because if in case anyone doesn't know what it is, could you explain what it is and then tell me how that's going?
Okay, polyamory. Break down into the Latin roots of the words. Poly meaning many, amory, like amor meaning love. And so polyamory is essentially the idea that you do not have to be bound to only one person, and that the experience of love, the experience of companionship, the experience of connection, is a many and varied, multifaceted thing which can be explored in different ways with different people. As opposed to monogamy, which is one love, one person, essentially. And the boundaries on that of how you can interact with other people are fairly well defined and generally understood rather than spoken about. So, yeah, polyamory. Anytime I talk about polyamory, a big response I get is like, oh, I could never do that. Because it can mean you fuck other people. It also means your partner may fuck other people. Highly likely they will. And we've also grown up in a society which is like, that's bad. That's bad. That's not allowed. You can't have that. And so we talk about like the wedding being salient, being a fertile test bed of experience. Polyamory, your first year of polyamory, ooh boy, you are gonna fucking hard level grind. Introspection, communication. Communication is like the linchpin of polyamory. And in order to communicate something to someone else, you have to understand it yourself. Kinda. And so in polyamory, you will experience so much stuff being brought up because you'll be put in situations which, if they're monogamous, would simply just not be allowed or be outside of the bounds of the relationship. And you'll find in polyamory that it can sometimes be the most obvious stuff can get you, like imagining your partner fucking someone else, kind of gets you. And then you kind of go, yeah, but why does it get me? What part of me is that prodding? What part of me is that like getting that actually hurts? And it can be it doesn't necessarily have to be like the actual like fucking pounding. It can be that they are that intimate with someone else. It can be that, so an interesting thing that came up in my relationship is my partner had a little bit of a thing about like sleepovers. And so they'd be totally fine with me like burying my face in someone's asshole. But if I like nuzzled them to sleep and then woke up with them, that is something that would get them. And that I find amazing. I find really beautiful. And I kind of came to this because, we were talking earlier about all this drinking. Is like I was fucking awful for cheating. And I was awful for cheating because I was so insecure. And I then needed to deal with that by finding someone attractive. And therefore, if I can get their validation, then I'm at least that good. But I really think that I am just kind of intrinsically slutty. And that isn't to say that in a bad way at all. Like, excuse me. Yeah, I just like looking and interacting and experiencing. And there isn't anything intrinsically wrong with that.
Are you in a relationship now?
I'm in a relationship now. Yes.
A polyamorous relationship?
A polyamorous relationship.
Okay. Would you recommend it then?
Interesting that you ask that. Yes, but only to people who feel called to it.
Yeah, only to someone who has like that instinct to maybe cheat or...
No. Oh, well, actually, yes.
Yeah.
But not like, yeah. Give me a sec. So a lot of people, like they'll be in like 30-year marriages and then they'll have an affair and then that'll break the entire relationship and they'll have to fucking split the house and like the dog goes to one of them and the kids get fucking broken up. And yeah, that's awful. But also, if you've talked about this before, sweet. Or if you're in a relationship and you're kind of like, I actually fancy that guy and I feel myself wanting to suck his dick. Cool. All right. Then talk to your partner about that because undoubtedly your partner has been like, I've been staring at that woman's ass for the last like 3 hours, or there's a woman at work who I'm actually deeply interested in. And it will bring up a huge amount. It will really bring up a lot. But like we were saying about Maskin earlier, I think, at least from what I remember, we enter into these monogamous relationships and we know that like fancying other people is not really allowed, or wanting to fuck other people is not really allowed. So we don't say it. We don't go like, oh yeah, you see that person? Yeah, they're really hot. And so we get this idea that maybe your partner also doesn't fancy other people, but everyone fucking looks, everyone like does this. And one of the things I really love about polyamory is that you can meet someone and you can feel called to like go and interact with them. And for me, that initial thing is generally sexual. I'll be like, oh, cool, they're hot, they're interesting, I probably want to have sex with them. And then I'll get closer, and I will get closer than I would have got in a monogamous relationship. Because if I approach to this distance in a monogamous relationship, I'd be overstepping like the bounds of it. And then really you get that close to that person, you go, actually, I don't want to have sex with this person. What I really want to do is talk philosophy. But there was just a pull towards them. And that needs to be explored. And then that also goes into your friendships, and you take the barriers off between relationship and friendship, and that makes everything like so much more. Mm,
So it releases the tension on all of your interactions with
yes.
like members of the opposite sex or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man, that's so interesting. I think because I thought I've never been in a polyamorous relationship. I can't even get one person to be in a relationship with me. But the last there was a girl that I was seeing for a little while, and it was clearly like fairly casual,
Hmm.
but like that wasn't really communicated, and
Hmm.
I think I'd only experienced like regular inverted commas like straight up
Yeah.
monogamous relationships, and I think what that was missing was she probably should have said to me, Uh, I probably want to fuck other guys. I probably want to fuck other girls. Like, is that okay? Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? But we didn't have that conversation. So and we weren't actually. It was like we were like dating, seeing each other, whatever. And I was kind of like, yeah, it's that communication element whereby because it wasn't stated that that's what she wanted to do,
Hmm.
she like, I think I hypothesized that she was going behind my back,
Hmm.
and
So I just want to pull up your word in here. She should have said that that's what she wanted, which is,
yeah, true,
interesting.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
you
yeah.
could have asked, hey, what what's the deal here?
Yes, fair play, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'll bring this back to me as well because I wasn't meaning this was her fault at all. This is
It's
kind of
okay. I just
just
wanted to grab you on it.
yeah, like but I think so the idea at the time of like someone being with someone else was so like
Hmm.
heart wrenching.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I would admit at the time, like, is this the person I'm going to with for the rest of my life? Probably not. Like, I kind of knew
Hmm.
that, but like that anxious attachment style, like flaring up.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember thinking, like, to like back up kind of your point was, I would imagine it'd be a really good exercise for me to have to experience that in a
Hmm.
non-monogamous type of relationship because it's kind of like you have to let go of the ego a little bit. You are
Hmm.
not the be all and end all. You are not, because I think I would have this thing in previous relationships like, I'm the most attractive man in the world. Like, she won't be
Hmm.
attracted to that guy, and like you end up like believing these things because it's too painful to imagine that that's not true.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I don't know if it's something that I would do, but certainly I like the idea of it as an exercise, no pun intended, for like yeah, being able to like get out your own way and realizing that the world doesn't revolve around you.
Yeah, this is a big thing as well. Like, how much pressure is it that you have to be your partner's everything?
Mm.
And I think as well, it kind of comes out of like this hyper individualization that we're under in our current culture. This like nuclear family kind of bullshit. We've moved away from community, moved away from community hugely. And so, your partner is your rock. They're your everything. They're your emotional support. They're your fucking therapist. They're your fucking meal prepper. They're your fucking XYZ. Motherfucker, like, I got my own shit to do. Like, and the idea that then that you don't have to be everything. You are a big part of someone's life, depending on like the parameters of your relationship. But also that other person has their life and they have their network and they have their other people. Which I think is super important. And it's super important to contextualize your relationship within the wider context. I think also something that is really good is it's fucking hardcore communication. You know, you can say that, you know, you feel like the person you were dating at the time wanted to fuck other people, and you knew really, actually, you're probably not going to be with us the rest of your life. You're not super invested in this, but we have the sunglasses that say fucking someone else is terrible and unacceptable and da 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 da. But really, if you challenge that belief, if you look at that and go, actually, this person has sex with someone else, what is that actually doing to me? What is that actually hitting in me? Is it hitting my need for specialness? I'm the one person who has access to intimacy with this person. Is it hitting my insecurities? Is it, oh, this other person is attractive and they want to have sex with them, therefore I'm not good enough? Or is it hitting my fucking like typical male masculinity? I'm like, oh, what if he fucks better than I do? Yeah, what if he makes her come more? Like, you know, and it just gets all these little bits and it proliferates down, down, down until you kind of go, oh, and you dig through it. Yeah, it's a fantastic exercise um for growth, but at the same time, I love this term. Like it's finger before a fist. You know, you don't have to go straight in at the fucking deep end. You know, if you're either in an established relationship, I've never really had a lot of experience in going in a established monogamous relationship into a polyamorous relationship. I hear that is very difficult. Um, I was more, we kind of, my first instance in polyamory, and your first tries polyamory, they're going to be a gang fuck. They're going to be a train wreck. You've just got to kind of accept that. The first time you do anything, you will fuck it up. And that is the only way to get around it. It's practice. Yeah.
On that note, thank you for sharing that, mate. Yeah, so interesting. Like, I love having these chats and just kind of like getting things on the table and exploring like different ways of looking at stuff and perspectives. And this has been really interesting. And yeah, I appreciate it. What's coming? What's like on the cards for you in the next few years? Have you got anything on the horizon?
Next few years. I want a van and a dog. And I want to dive more into murals. Like I'm a tattoo artist now, and I want to start doing big scale art. In the next few years, me and a few of my friends are considering kind of creating a community together. So yeah, I think my direction is more creativity, more community, more love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And where shall I direct people to check out your work?
Okay, yeah. Hi again. My name's Christopher. I'm a tattoo artist, and amongst other things. So you can find my Instagram, ink.hurst, Hurst, dot as in full stop. Jason, it's been lovely talking to you. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. No, likewise, mate. It's been good. And yeah, have a great day, whatever you're up to.
You too, man.
Take care.